Greetings and welcome back to our 2020 virtual celebration of Christmas on the Farm at the Pennsylvania German Cultural Heritage Center at Kutztown University. For many of us, there is nothing better than enjoying traditional favorite foods over the holidays with our families and friends. Although this year many of us will be staying home, today we can join Terry Berger at his Pennsylvania Dutch kitchen at Lehighton Farms in Lehighton, PA. Terry is a member of the Moravian Church and spent his childhood learning many of the delicious recipes by watching his mother cook in the kitchen. Terry has been the summer kitchen chef at the Kutztown Folk Festival and the Heritage Center for many years. He not only cooks traditional recipes, but is also eager to speak the Pennsylvania Dutch language. When he's not on site or at other locations demonstrating, you can find Terry cooking or baking with his own wood-burning stove, quilting, and canning. We hope you enjoy this delicious exploration of Terry Berger's Pennsylvania Dutch kitchen.
Guten Morgen von Lehighton Brauerei und willkommen zur Christoph-Ofen-Brauerei 2020. Mein Name ist Terry Berger, der Sommerkoch von Kutztown Cultural Center und des Kutztown Folk Festival. Good morning and welcome from Lehighton Farm, and welcome to Christmas on the Farm 2020. My name's Terry Berger. I'm the summer kitchen cook for the Cultural Center in Kutztown as well as the Kutztown, Pennsylvania German Folk Festival. Heute Morgen machen wir Schweinbauch oder Hogmaw und Äpfelboy. This morning we're going to be making pig stomach, stuffed pig stomach, and apple pie. Pig stomach as a dish is something that goes back in history. It arises not only in Pennsylvania German cooking, but in other cultures as well. Here in America, the Cajuns make something called ponce, which is a stuffed pig stomach. Their stuffed pig stomach is more of a very large sausage that is trussed up and smoked. In France, the French make a stuffed pig stomach called chaudin, which is very similar to the Pennsylvania German pig stomach in what it's stuffed with, various vegetables and meats and things. But it's interesting to me that it comes into Pennsylvania German culture and Pennsylvania German cooking tradition. It may have entered our way of life through the Alsatian part of the Pennsylvania German community early on. However, it is something that is still enjoyed very much today. Some people eat it on Thanksgiving. Some people eat it in place of pork and sauerkraut on New Year's. So today we're going to be walking through the steps of making a stuffed pig stomach, which I'll guide you through. So hopefully at the end of it, you can make your own sometime. The first step in making our pig stomach is taking the pig stomach, which I'll hold up for you to see. A pig stomach has a small opening and a large opening on one end and on the other. So the first step is to sew the small opening shut. And the stitch that you use really doesn't matter a whole lot. Of course, if you're a surgeon, you can use your best surgeon knot. But just a simple cast over stitch to close the end off. So it can be stuffed like a large sausage. I would also like to say that the dishes that I prepare are dishes that I learned growing up in Northampton County. And what I find is that different parts of Pennsylvania, folks use different things in stuffing their stomach, as well as other recipes that I know from my growing up years, period. I think sometimes this is due to regional differences. I also think it's due to the fact that being very frugal people, the Pennsylvania Germans tended to use what was on hand, even though there was a commonality in the dishes that we like to eat. Okay, our next step will be making the filling. So the ingredients that I use in my stuffing are cabbage, onions, smoked sausage, boneless pork, and potatoes. I like to sliver my onions so they're nice and fine. I think that gives a good appearance as well as a nice flavor. A trick I learned about slicing onions is to put them in the freezer for maybe 5 or 10 minutes so they're good and cold. That way you're not shedding a bunch of tears when you're cutting them. And cut the heart out of the cabbage. I use about 1/2 to 3/4 of a head of cabbage, very finely sliced. Some of the regional differences I've come across over the years. I've had pig stomach that was solely stuffed with diced potatoes and fresh sausage or smoked sausage. I've seen people shred carrots, and mix the shredded carrots in with the stuffing mix. Next is the smoked sausage. And you want to cut it in about 1/2 inch slices with half rounds. There again, some people use a combination of smoked sausage and fresh sausage. Some people use only fresh sausage. My mom in particular used smoked sausage and boneless pork. Very basic ingredients, but things that would have been very common on the farm years ago, especially at butchering time, which was always in the fall of the year, actually fall through to the middle of the winter. The last addition of the stuffing is diced potatoes. I do them last so I can keep them covered in water so they don't turn brown, as potatoes are apt to do. And probably about a medium dice on the potatoes, maybe a 1/2 inch. Seasonings for your stuffing, again, vary by area. What I grew up with was salt, pepper, and where my mother always pushed the envelope with her seasoning profile was a little bit of coriander and some ginger as well as parsley flakes in it. I think most people use salt, pepper, and parsley flakes. And then you just mix it together. You want the meats, onions, potatoes, everything evenly distributed throughout the stuffing. Your eventual goal, and the thing that a good pig stomach is always judged on, is whether you can actually slice it in whole slices without it falling apart. And I would say we're there. So I've been working at stuffing it. Didn't think I wanted to fill up your whole time with stuffing the stomach, but you get a sense of what it looks like. As you put the ingredients in, you want to press it in firmly because, like all stomachs, it will expand to accept what's being put into it. One thing my mom would do, if for some reason she had extra stuffing, she would actually make a soup out of it later in the week. I will also say too, I've heard people kind of joke about pig stomach being very similar to haggis. The only similarity with haggis, a Scottish dish, is that it is a dish prepared in the stomach of an animal. The filling is very different, including oatmeal and some other things. And our final maneuver here is to sew the last opening shut. All right, and we're just finishing up with the sewing of the last opening here on the stomach. I put it on the grate in the roasting pan. The last step before it goes in the oven, I do rub the outside of it with a little bit of olive oil just to make sure that it cooks up nice and brown and crisp. It goes in a 350-degree oven for approximately an hour and a half to 2 hours. So I got my gal fired up a little earlier this morning. She's all ready for baking. Stomach goes in. I will check it about every 15 minutes or so, baste it, make sure that it's baking the way it needs to. Probably halfway through the process I will flip the stomach over so it's nice and brown and crispy on both sides of it. So I'm starting the next phase of our journey this morning. I started peeling apples for the apple tart. Just have a few more to go. Not that peeling apples is all that thrilling, but I thought I'd at least let you in on some secrets to it. This is one of those things that my mom taught me from little on up, so I've been peeling apples for a good 50 years at this point. When I was little, my parents would still help my dad's side of the family in some common cooking things like apple butter and making and other things that involved apples. So peeling apples was something that was going on quite a bit. I keep them in a little bit of salted water just so they don't brown. First thing I do is remove the core, cut out the blossom end, the stem end, take a little bit of skin off and a little more around that next cut. Do that on the blossom end also. And there you have it. Next step in the pie making process is rolling our pie crust. I made the dough a little bit ago. It's been sitting in the fridge, firming up. You'll notice my rolling pin looks a little bit differently than most people's rolling pins. This is a Moravian rolling pin. Throughout the 17th, the 18th, and well into the 19th century, probably about the midpoint in the 19th century, the Moravians were a communal people. And so a lot of the things that we use day to day still survive in some of our households. I've seen them listed in museums as mother's rolling pins because if you had a baby in one hand, you could still roll your pie crust out with another. Fitting the pie crust into the pie tin. I do cut my crust a little bit longer. And you'll see why I do that in just a second. That little lip I will fold over So when I go to crimp it, I have a very nice clean line and edge along the top of the pie crust. Crimping or fluting just gives a little added decorative edge to the pie. And there you go. Unfortunately, there's no real recipe for making a Pennsylvania German apple tart. It's pretty much watching and learning. Once you have your pie tin filled with your pie crust, it's pretty much a ratio of flour and sugar that goes on the bottom of the crust to start. It's a good spoonful, maybe a spoonful and a half of flour. To 2 spoons of sugar. Kind of work that together and swirl it around the bottom of your pie crust. And now we start filling the pie crust with apples. The true artistry in the pie is piecing the top apple pieces or apple slices together. Once you have your apples in, a little bit more sugar over the top. A dusting of cinnamon. I will dot it with butter and then put it in the oven. Just a shot of the pie before it goes in the oven. So our cooking time on the pig stomach has come to an end. And there you go. Pennsylvania German pig stomach. Nix besser kann man finden. And here we have the stomach out of the oven and cooling. Just getting a quick shot of the pie while it's baking for you. Again, if I had smell-o-vision, I would love to send this to you because the whole house smells like cinnamon and butter. So our time has come to take the pie out of the oven. It smells so good in the house. Ugh. And there you go. Pennsylvania German apple tart, fresh from the oven. So here we have the results of our morning's cooking and baking. Pennsylvania German stuffed pig stomach, Pennsylvania German apple tart. Ich wünsche euch gute Speise und gute Fresse und menschlich, ich wünsche euch und alle fröhliche Christtag. Von mir, meiner Heimat und der Kutztown Cultural Center all. So here we have the results of our morning cooking and baking. Pennsylvania German pig stomach, Pennsylvania German apple tart. I wish to you all good meals and good eats, and mostly Merry Christmas from my home to yours and the Pennsylvania German Cultural Center in Kutztown.
Thanks for watching, but don't go away. Coming up next, join seasoned traditional craftsman Daniel Arruda of Pinecraft Log Homes as he demonstrates the techniques used to build many of the earliest log homes in America. This virtual celebration of Christmas on the Farm is brought to you by the Pennsylvania German Cultural Heritage Center at Kutztown University, committed to preserving and celebrating the unique folk culture, history, and language of the region.